Some unlikely names brought the fireworks for the Rangers on the 4th of July in a big win. On today's show, I'm talking about should Mitch Garver be playing more, and would you trust Dane Dunning to start a playoff game for the Texas Rangers? All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 5 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Wednesday, July 5th. Your Rangers are 51-35, alone atop the AL West with a 3-game lead over the Astros. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into today's show, this episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app, use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Now, the Rangers got a big contribution from 2 unlikely heroes in the 7 and 8 spots in the lineup in Mitch Garver and Robbie Grossman. This was a great win for the Rangers that needed a win after losing 3 out of 4 to the Houston Astros over the weekend bridge series, a Friday through Monday 4-game series, which we don't see all that often. It was a rough series for the Rangers, who could have and probably should have won all 4 of those games, including the wildest game of the season. Unfortunately, that one ended in a loss on Monday, but the Rangers needed to pull out of that skid, and they probably need to take at least 2 out of 3 from the Boston Red Sox, getting off to a good start there, and they definitely need to take I would say all 3 games against the Nationals and head into the All-Star break on a winning streak, hopefully, because things do not get easier after the All-Star break. The Rangers have a tough schedule coming up, and getting contributions from the bottom of the lineup is one of the ways that the Rangers have won so often this year, and they also got big contributions from Dane Dunning. This was a bullpen day for the Red Sox, something the Rangers haven't done well against. We'll get into that in the second segment, but Mitch Garver stepped up huge for the Rangers, going 2 for 2 with a 3-run bomb, an RBI, a double, and a pair of walks, including a bases-loaded walk for him in this one. He was catching for Jonah Heim, getting the day off after 4 straight day games and the trip up to Boston, and a quick turnaround for the Rangers. And it was a big day for Robbie Grossman as well. 3 for 4 with a double and an RBI as well. Raised his OPS to 674, playing left field for the Rangers in that tricky left field with that big old wall over there in left field, a difficult outfield to play, but good for Robbie Grossman stepping up in a big situation. Hadn't played in a few days, and this is something that is a difficult task for a manager when you have so many players on your roster that are performing so well. Not that Robbie Grossman is one of the ones that's performing very well, but you have a lot of talented players and a lot of guys that are getting hot and heating up. I mean, Travis Jankowski just had the game of his life yesterday on Monday and then didn't play on Tuesday. Part of that was because there was a lefty on the mound. It didn't know how long he was going to go. Only ended up being, I believe, 1 inning, maybe 4 or 5 batters that he faced. But Jankowski doesn't come into the lineup today or Tuesday, and Robbie Grossman steps up in a big way. 3 hits for him, and he's like the 5th outfielder on this team, which is not what was expected when the Rangers signed him. They signed him to be the everyday left fielder. He won that job at camp, and Travis Jankowski was an afterthought, and Ezekiel Duran was going to be a super utility guy who maybe played a couple of times a week, and turns out Travis Jankowski has been absolutely fantastic. Ezekiel Duran has been absolutely excellent for the Rangers and has earned himself an everyday slot, and he took the day off, and realizing that he needed the day off was a good get by Bochy. I mean, Ezekiel Duran was as hot as anybody in the month of June, having a slash line of 349, 393, and slugging 627 with 5 home runs in that month. But in the series against Houston, he was not good at all. 0 for 12 with a combined 8 strikeouts in that series. So Skipper decided to give him the day off on that Monday game against the Astros, get his head right, and in his first at-bat on Tuesday in Boston, he singled right up the middle, exactly what the Rangers were hoping that he would do, looking like he's getting back on track. I mean, And before that, he had multiple hits in, I believe, 5 of 6 games. Maybe it was 6 of 7 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 5 straight multi-hit games. And then a game off against the Yankees. And then 2 more multi-hit games against the Yankees and White Sox. So, I mean, he was on a tear as hot as literally anybody in that month. But Bochy, seeing that just a couple of swings and a couple of games where he wasn't quite right, instead of letting that funk spiral into a prolonged funk, Bochy gave him the 1 day off and put him back in the lineup against Boston in a park where I think a lot of righty hitters are going to have a lot of success because of that short left field. If you can just poke that one over there in left field, there are just a lot of doubles, I think, for the Rangers, hopefully, in this series. A team that has hit a lot of doubles, I believe second in the major leagues in doubles, only to these Boston Red Sox, because they have such a doubles hitter-friendly park. But Mitch Garver catching in this one, not the best defensive game, had a pass ball and also had a catcher's interference, but I think defensively catching-wise, he's been much better this year than he was last year. He's thrown out better than league average runners. I think 7% better than league average. League average is caught stealing 22% of the time. Mitch Garver is at 29% of the time. He calls a decent game, and he's not going to be Jonah Heim back there with his framing, but I think he does a good enough job defensively. Obviously, there's going to be a drop-off, but offensively, that's what he's there for. He is there to bring the oomph, the thump. He is a guy who won the Silver Slugger in 2019, 31 home runs in just 93 games, had a 995 OPS that year, and the year before he came to Texas, he had an 875 OPS, 13 homers in 68 games, and 15 doubles. And this year, the power is drained just a little bit in the month of June. I've been kind of confused as to how they've been using him, because it seems like there's a lot of days where he'll DH and then he'll get a day off and then he'll DH again, and it's like they don't trust him to play in back-to-back games. And I think if that's what it takes to keep Mitch Garver healthy, then that's what the Rangers should do. I mean, he played in 16 games, I believe, in the month of June after he came back on June 3rd, played June 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, took a day off in the 8th, and then came back on the 9th. Actually, I think that was an actual day off. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight games, and then took a couple of days off in the rest of that Tampa Bay series, came back against LA and was DHing there. And it seems like every game that he catches, he'll have at least 1 day off, if not 2. So we might not see Mitch Garver the rest of this series. We might see him in the series finale, because he did catch the first game of this series. And I think that if that's what it takes, I mean, he's a guy who clearly has a lot of injury issues. Last year for the Rangers, he only played in 54 games, and he only caught in the first month of the season. I think it was the middle of May when he went on the IL the first time, then came back as a DH only, then had surgery on his arm and was done for the season before the All-Star break. Came back this year, was hoping to get a little bit more out of him, and he went on the IL with that hamstring injury for about a month and a half, and then he's come back, and he hasn't been quite the same. He hasn't shown nearly as much pop. Just 1 home run in the month of June, and that was in his first game back on June 3rd against Seattle. That was in that 16-6 drubbing, and didn't show a whole lot of pop. But I mean, playing him a little bit more consistently, maybe that's the way to get him heated up. Maybe it's not, I don't know. But you got to be careful with Mitch Garver. But he is kind of like a luxury item. It's not something that this Rangers offense really particularly needs. But I think the best version of this lineup has him at DH, has Ezekiel Duran in left field. And I think that eventually Evan Carter, earning his spot, his playing time, I don't think it's going to be him versus Ezekiel Duran. I think it's going to be him versus Mitch Garver. Because if Ezekiel Duran's bat is better than Mitch Garver's, which I think it is at this point, and you want some defensive upside in left field, and you don't want to go with Travis Jankowski, as much as I value Travis Jankowski, I'm pretty sure right now Evan Carter, he might be a better hitter at the big league level if he was playing every day versus Travis Jankowski, which feels like something that would have been obvious to say early in the season, but with how Jankowski has been playing, it's not quite as obvious. So I think that Mitch Garver is a person who's not nearly appreciated enough by Rangers fans, but you see in games like this that when he's hot, he can absolutely win you a game all by himself. Coming up, we're going to look at the Rangers' struggles with bullpen games, a little bit of frustration with how long this game took, and what switch Dane Dunning has made to be so effective this year. But first, this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Our new sponsor, Sleeper, is a fantasy sports and real money gaming app focused on bringing people together through sports and gaming. Sleeper has become the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world with over 5 million active users. At Sleeper, it's not just about sports, it's about building personal connections and lasting memories. With Sleeper, predict the hottest baseball stats like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy baseball skills. Entries can be made in 30 seconds or less. It is just that easy. Download Sleeper in your app store and use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On next week's shows, I'll be out of town, so I'll be doing my mid-season prospect re-rank. The Rangers take on the Red Sox this week. You can catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, the Rangers had a bullpen game they were facing off against today, and this has been a bit of their kryptonite for the last couple of weeks, and I think it's maybe even been all season. Against Detroit, they had a couple of games that both the games that they lost, the starters did not go deep at all. The Rangers had some trouble with a bullpen game from the White Sox in the week before that. And when the Rangers have been able to drive the opposing starting pitcher out of the game, it has been difficult. This Rangers lineup, one of the things they do really, really well is hit against starting pitchers for a second and third time. But when you go with the bullpen game, it feels incredibly frustrating because usually that's kind of a sign of the other team is a little bit punting on the game because they're like, we don't have any starting pitchers, so we're just going to throw as many bullpen arms out there as we can, hope they can get us through whatever they can. And the Rangers have not been able to take advantage of those type of games. In this one, they did. They jumped all over everybody that came out of the bullpen except for the final two pitchers. Everybody was stung for at least a run in this one. I mean, Bernardino, Ort, Murphy, Garza, all of them were stung for at least 1 or 2 runs. Ort, they really got to. He allowed 2 of the 3 runs on that 3-run Mitch Garver homer, and the Rangers just did a good job of jumping on him from the gate. It was a little worrisome to start this one when Dane Dunning allowed a leadoff triple, and then Jarren Duran came in to score immediately afterwards, and you thought, okay, well, the Rangers are down 1-0. That's not great. I mean, but we saw the Rangers' ability to rally in that game where they were down 10-2 on Monday. Thankfully, they didn't have to rally from down 10-2. That would have been really difficult. And Dane Dunning going deep in this one, going 6 innings, was very necessary after having to get 7 2/3 innings out of your bullpen the day before, and then you travel and all kinds of things that come with that. But the Rangers, good on them for being able to get on these pitchers early and just absolutely take advantage, even without Jonah Heim in their lineup, one of the best bats in this lineup, and without Travis Jankowski, who's been having a great season. I mean, getting the depth of this lineup is absolutely insane, and one of the things that I really love about Mitch Garver is that he really brings the pop, brings the home run power, and this Rangers team, that's one of the only things they haven't done like extremely well offensively. I mean, it feels kind of picky. It feels really picky, actually, to say that this team hasn't done well with the home run ball, as they have the 6th most home runs in all of Major League Baseball, and they have an OPS as a team over 800. The only team that's got a better OPS than the Rangers is the Braves, who have an 838 OPS as a team, which is just stupid. Honestly, it's just kind of stupid how good the Braves offense is, and the Braves might actually have a better offense than the Rangers. I think I feel pretty comfortable in saying that, but the Rangers have the 6th most home runs. They are behind the Braves, the Dodgers, the Rays, the Angels, the Yankees, and just ahead of the Cardinals and the Twins. But this team has a pretty deep roster of people who can hit a bunch of home runs. I mean, Josh Young is on pace for 30 home runs. Adolis Garcia is on pace for 40-plus home runs, and really that's about it. Everybody else is kind of on pace for 20 homers, which is fine, is solid. The Rangers might have the most 20-plus home run hitters that they've ever had. Ezekiel Duran's on pace for it. Leody Taveras is on pace for it. Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, Jonah Heim. Nathaniel Lowe is actually not. He's on pace for about 16 or 18 home runs, and I'd like to see him get going and at least get to the 20 home run plateau. If the Rangers can have Jonah Heim get there, which I think he will. He really fell off with his home run power in the second half last year. I think that's something that can get this team out of funks when they do kind of regress to the mean with runners in scoring position, because eventually those kind of things will happen. You're not always going to be able to get 5 hits with runners in scoring position every single game. So the long ball is an occasionally effective tool, so that if you go 1 for 5 as a team with runners in scoring position, that one hit came on a 3-run bomb, that is the difference in the game oftentimes. And the Rangers did really well to do that early on in the season. I feel like every single one of Mitch Garver's home runs, actually, I think 3 out of 4 are 3-run bombs, including 2 in the same game early in the season, and then 1 solo shot in the month of June when he first came back in that absolute rout as a cherry on top, and then this one a 3-run bomb to give the Rangers a lead, and that would be all the Rangers needed because Dane Dunning was excellent in this one. But good on the Rangers for staying on it, and for the bullpen for staying on it in a rain delay. This was an incredibly long game. It started at 12:30, and there was an hour and 47-minute delay in a 2-hour and 40-minute game while it was actually happening. So 4 hours and 27 minutes, and it felt like it. Actually, as soon as the delay started, I went for a walk and hung out at the pool and just took my time and listened to the rest of the game on the radio, because I thought this is going to be a long delay, so might as well enjoy it and make the most of it. Sorry for the Rangers that they couldn't go on a walk and enjoy the 4th of July by hanging out at a pool for the hour and 47 minutes that they were delayed in this one, but good on them for staying with it. And I was a little concerned when that delay happened, because that was right when Josh Sborz had gotten fully warmed up, and then immediately is when this game went into a rain delay. So you thought, okay, well, Sborz is warmed up, but he hasn't thrown a single pitch. Is he going to be forced to come in and still pitch? And is he still going to be warm? Is it going to be too long? Because usually about, I think 45 minutes is the longest that Major League Baseball, or just in general, players want to or can sit out there and after they've been in a game and still get back into the game. So if it's longer than a 45-minute delay, usually you don't see those pitchers come back in. But with Sborz, since he hadn't warmed up on the mound, he had warmed up in the bullpen. You thought, okay, well, getting him warm and then sitting back down and then waiting for an hour and 47 minutes, you thought, okay, well, I don't know if this guy is really going to be able to come in if they're going to force him to face those 3 batters, because the Rangers decided to put him in. But he did. He came in, he faced 4 batters. He struck out 3 of them, allowed a single, and was excellent. I was a little worried about that, but I'm glad that the worry turned out to be basically nothing. Will Smith comes on for just 1 out and gets his 15th save of the season. Good to see him get back in there and get that confidence back after a rough outing against the Astros, maybe aided a little bit by some not great defensive play, but still he got kind of lit up in that one, in a game that the Rangers really, really wanted to have. Maybe if he didn't get lit up in that one, then he wouldn't have come in this situation. It wasn't necessarily a close game. It was a save situation, because the winning runner was on deck. I believe that's what or was in the hole on deck. I don't, whatever it is, the tying run was on deck. I believe that's what the indication is for a save. But good to see Will Smith go out there, get the save, close this out, and this bullpen bounce back after a rough day and a little bit of a rough weekend, especially Grant Anderson going in there, facing 3 batters, getting 2 of them out. Brock Burke coming in there, only allowing 1 run, which was unearned, and getting a strikeout as well. Josh Sborz getting out there and getting his 3 strikeouts after his most recent rough outing. All these guys had been roughed up against Houston, and it's good to see them get back in there and get some confidence under their belts, because the Rangers they only had to have 3 innings from this bullpen, because the Rangers got a lot out of Dane Dunning, and I am a huge believer in him. One of the things they talked about on the broadcast was why he has been so much more effective this year. Coming up, we're going to look at if I trust him in a playoff start and what has made him so much better this season. But first, this word from our sponsors. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Friday's show, I'll be breaking down what happened on the farm this week. The Rangers take on the Red Sox this week and catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, there's something that the broadcast was talking about with Dane Dunning this year versus last year, why he has been so effective, and it's his extension. and him being fully healthy. That's one of the things on his Baseball Savant page that is in the bright red. Actually, the only thing in the bright red, his extension percent. He is in the 86th percentile of extension. Now, what that means is that he gets down the mound, and when he releases the baseball, it is very, very close to the hitters. So that's why he's able to throw a 91-mile-an-hour fastball and not get absolutely lit up. Last year, it was not nearly as good in the 76th percentile. And I thought, okay, well, that's not really that much of a difference. But with Dane Dunning, those little margins make all the difference in the world. And the reason he's able to get more extension this year as opposed to last year is because he is fully healthy. I mean, in 2021, he was in the 72nd percentile of extension rate, and in the 2020, he was in the 65th percentile of extension rate. So he's been getting better and better and better each year, and that's why I think, in terms of his extension. So I think that's part of the reason why he has been so healthy. In the offseason, he had hip surgery, so that's why he missed, I believe, the last month-ish or month and a half of the season to get right and be fully healthy for the start of the season. He also talked about, when the Rangers made all these moves for, trading for Jake Odorizzi, then signing Jacob deGrom, then signing Nathan Eovaldi, then signing Andrew Heaney, he got mad and he thought, well, there's no spot for me in the rotation. There's not even if they go with a 6-man rotation, there was not a spot for Dane Dunning. He got mad. He said, I allowed myself to be mad for a day, and then I went back to work and say, all right, well, if I'm not going to start, then I'm going to help this team as a long man, and that's what he was at the start of the season. And he stepped into the rotation when Jacob deGrom went down, and he has not looked back ever since. This year, he has been so much better. He's tweaked his pitch repertoire just a little bit. The cutter has been exceptional this year. He's throwing that nearly twice as much as last year. He's throwing the sinker about 7% less than last year, throwing the slider, changeup a little bit less, and the four-seamer and curveball just a little bit more, but those pitches aren't really why he's been having so much success this year. The cutter has just been sterling for him. It has been much, much better. The vertical movement is significantly better than the average, 11% better average vertical drop on that cutter than the other pitches, than the average cutter in the league. The slider is 7% better in terms of vertical drop. Curveball is 11% better in terms of vertical drop. It has been very, very good for him. And the run value on his sinker and his cutter, both those pitches are why he's had so much success. He's throwing those a combined 3.5% of the time, basically over half, he's using sinker cutter. And the run value versus average is -13 on that sinker and -8 on the cutter. Everything else is kind of an average pitch. The slider is -2, changeup +2, curveball, four-seamer, both of those +1. So about average with those. He's not throwing them all that much, but he has been very, very effective with those. The slider has been a pretty good swing and miss pitch for him. 30% of the time, it has a 30.8% K rate, which is significantly higher than any other one of his pitches. The next closest K rate on any of his pitches is surprisingly his four-seamer with a 25% K rate on that, just a 14% K rate on the sinker, 9.1% K rate on the cutter. But still, he has been using that to be very, very effective this year. Opposing hitters are hitting just 191 against his cutter, not his he does not have a slider, no combined cutter and slider. Both those are distinct, two different pitches that are both very good, but the cutter, opponents are slugging just 234 against that cutter this year. Just 234, and the expected slugging is 368, so it's not that much different than what's expected of him. I mean, it's just been a very, very effective pitch for him, and the sinker has been effective as well. Both those are being paired very well to a very good defensive catcher, and most of his Baseball Savant numbers don't jump off the page as someone who's like, oh wow, this guy's stuff is incredible. Oh my gosh, everything is just working for him. It's just Jacob deGrom-esque. It's not. There's a lot of blue. His K rate's in the bottom 10% of baseball. Whiff rate, bottom 7% of baseball. Fastball velo, curve spin, all those in the bottom 10% of baseball. Fastball spin rate being in the 17th percentile, that's actually a good thing for him, because when you have a two-seamer, a sinker like he does, you do not want that to spin. So that's being blue should be red because it's a sinker, and that's what you want it to do. But I digress. The thing that he's also done very well this year is improved his walk rate significantly. He's in the 77th percentile of walk rate. If you do not have elite stuff, you cannot afford to miss your spots, and you cannot afford to give free passes. Yeah, you might be an extreme sinker ball pitcher and get a lot of ground balls and a lot of ground ball double plays, and that worked for Martin Perez last year, but it's not working for Martin Perez this year. So keeping guys off the base pass, that is a huge route to success. I mean, his expected ERA is significantly higher than his actual ERA. Right now, he's got a 2.61 actual ERA, expected ERA of 4.55. I think that number does him a disservice, and I think that some of these numbers, and sometimes Baseball Savant, it's a very helpful tool, and I really like having all the info at my disposal to kind of understand a little bit better of why some things are working and why some things aren't. But you look at some guys in baseball, and they defy the metrics. They defy, the advanced scouting, the analytics, things of that nature, the traditional analytics, I should say. There's some other analytics that have him as a very, very good pitcher, but the general Fangraphs kind of mentality, it doesn't paint Dane Dunning as a very good pitcher, but guys like this have had success in the big leagues for a long time. You don't have to throw at 99 miles an hour. You don't have to have Jacob deGrom stuff. You don't have to have Spencer Strider stuff. And sometimes you can just be effective by forcing major league hitters to get themselves out. Now, there's a lot less room for error, and obviously we've seen that in occasional starts. I don't even think Dane Dunning has had a real blow-up start this year, but I trust Dane Dunning in this Rangers rotation in a playoff spot. I don't think the Rangers need to go make a move for a starting pitcher. I trust this rotation as is. Now, if there is an injury to somebody, if Nathan Eovaldi goes down for a month, or John Gray goes down for a month, or Martin Perez goes down for a month, then yeah, you might have to make some moves there. But I trust this rotation 1 through 5 as is. I mean, Martin Perez did have a really rough start, and I think he might be pitching through an injury, but I think if he skips a start and then comes back the All-Star break and he's fully healthy, then I think this rotation 1 through 5 is fine. And right now, Dane Dunning is pretty much the second best starter on the staff. He's got the best ERA among starters on this team. His 2.61 is 3 points better than Nathan Eovaldi's 2.64 ERA. That's honestly incredible. It is not something that I was expecting at all. And he hasn't just been doing it as a reliever. As a reliever, he was exceptional this year. 8 games, a 1.77 ERA in 20 and a third innings pitched. As a starter, he's got a 2.86 ERA in 11 games started, 66 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts per 9, but 2.5 strikeouts, 2 walks. That is exceptional. That is what you're looking for from Dane Dunning, a guy who knows himself, knows what he is, what he does well, and he sticks to those guns and does it very, very well. It's not the most sexy profile. It's not anything too crazy, but I mean, we saw when it's on, it is incredibly effective. We saw in that last start against Detroit, where he should have had a Maddox. He absolutely should have, if not for freaking Andy Ibanez hustling out a meaningless infield single in a game that he was losing 10-0. I mean, a little bit of respect to him, but also just come on, man, come on. Dane Dunning's probably not going to have a lot more complete game shutouts in him, and that was a great outing. I mean, even against the Yankees, he went 7 innings, allowed just 2 runs, and I don't think he was on the mound when both of those runs scored. I think that was some inherited runners that were allowed to score, and he went 6 innings and 2 runs against Toronto the start before. So I mean, we've seen these really, really good starts and really consistent starts, even against the good teams, the boppers of the league, Toronto, New York. Not that Detroit is one of the boppers of the league, but this Boston offense is a pretty solid offense. He only allowed 1 run in 6 innings, and going deep in this one, just allowing the 1 walk in his 6 innings of work. That was absolutely huge for Dane Dunning. I trust him in a playoff spot. I trust him to hold up for the rest of the season. Is he going to be like this next year? Maybe not, but it doesn't matter. He is the closest thing the Rangers had to a homegrown pitching success in the last 5 years, and the Rangers should embrace this. And I don't think that this is something that's incredibly fluky and completely unreasonable to expect him to maintain some level of success like this. Now, is he going to be my Game 1 starter or Game 2 starter? Absolutely not. Maybe Game 3, depending on how Andrew Heaney or Martin Perez is going at the moment, but this is a guy I trust in a playoff spot. This is a guy I trust down the stretch. He has been crucial for the Rangers, and his success should not be underappreciated. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy first place Texas Rangers baseball.